And this is long overdue. Great to welcome back my good friend, your good friend, Jim Monos, the GM of the Memphis Showboats, UFL, right around the corner. So we've got a couple more weeks of Jim here in Western New York before he takes off with football continuing on this offseason. It didn't end at the Superdome. It never ends. There's more football for everybody to whet their appetite. Can't wait for that season, Jim. Also, of course, director of personnel for the Buffalo Bills 2013 to 2017. Kind of reverse engineering here. Back before that, New Orleans Saints, Southeast Scout, Super Bowl champ in 2009. And then the Philadelphia Eagles. That's where it all began. Area scout for the Eagles, your 2024 Super Bowl champ. So I've been dying for this conversation. We've been trying to make it work here the last few weeks. Both of us pretty busy. I was down in New Orleans for 8 days and writing about those Chiefs, the Eagles, covering it through the game. Everything's at golongtd.com if you want to check it out. Subscribers can access everything, all columns, all features, including Michael McCambridge's piece on the Kansas City Chiefs, which is excellent. Kind of a requiem for an epic quest. Check that out. But also, it's still fresh here in Western New York. This is a Bills team that harbored very real Super Bowl aspirations. I think that there's a lot of angles to look at. But I think that looking at the way the Super Bowl went down is just another reminder of how these opportunities are fleeting. That this was a compromised Chiefs team that could have been had in the AFC Championship game. And the Bills fell just short again to this team, this quarterback, this coach. We've got to get Jim Monos' perspective on everything because you've been in that front office. You know what it's like to try to build a team in several different capacities. You've been watching this Bills team closely. Before we dive in, how's life, Jim? It's been too long.
I like that question, Tyler. How's life?
Yeah, we can't get right to the nitty gritty.
I'm always happy when you leave and go to New Orleans and you make it back in one piece. I always tell people New Orleans is like Vegas. Be very careful. 2 to 3 nights max. If you're on a work trip like you were, it's doable. But 2 to 3 nights usually you can either lose your bank account, your finances, your health, your marriage. It can all go crumbling in New Orleans and Vegas if you're not careful. So very good job. Way to stick
Well,
to work.
I'll say this. I mean, that's why it was very important to just hurl myself into all things golongtd.com and write a big feature each day, do a lot of podcasts. I actually stayed with Connor Orr, who did a happy hour with us at Go Long. We had a Marriott together, and he's cranking out stories for SI. So, yeah, just all worked in a po' boy from time to time. There was a great restaurant. I think it was called Coaching Butcher. Does that ring a bell at all?
Oh, Coach on Butcher, one of the
Koshan
all-time best.
Butcher.
Oh yeah, one of my favorites, no
Oh,
doubt. You did
it,
good.
it,
Whoever gave you that spot, you did right.
well, I mean, I only ate there pretty much. I ate there 5 times because it was
Because their
amazing. Just
sandwiches are
worked through right through the
incredible.
menu.
Yeah,
Yeah.
incredible sandwiches.
So you know all about it. Okay.
Spent lots of time there. Tyler, Mickey Loomis, the GM for the Saints, the one year, all the scouts were in before the about 2 months before the draft, college scouts, and we usually would stay out in Metairie, which is close to the Saints facility, but the hotel that we usually stayed at, that Marriott was going under something, so they put us at the Marriott on Canal Street in the quarter for a month.
Ooh.
Yeah, and
Ooh.
that's why I was telling you, you can lose your bank
Dangerous
account, your
location
health,
there.
your relations. Exactly. I mean, we're
Yeah.
getting off work, it's 7:30 at night, and all of a sudden you're staring at the court, you're in the quarter, and you don't, yeah. Mhm.
Well, the Chiefs and the Eagles hotels were down there, and you could just walk everywhere. That's what's great about. I mean, every Super Bowl should be in New Orleans, aside from the nighttime scene, like the convention center where the teams stay, the weather, everything is perfect for hosting a Super Bowl. So every Super Bowl should be in New Orleans. Every combine should be in Indianapolis. It's perfect like that. And yeah, you're right. There was one point where I got a po' boy at a really good spot. Did a little research. It was fantastic. Which, by the way, at this spot, I think it was called like King Po' Boy.
Okay.
I don't know if that sounds familiar.
I don't know about
There
King.
were
I
like
don't know about King.
two. This was the day after the Super Bowl because I got a flight for Tuesday morning because Monday morning is insane at the airport and the
No
flights
doubt.
cost over a
That's a
thousand
veteran move.
bucks.
A veteran move.
Veteran move. So I'm there at one day. There's these two drunken Eagle fans. I mean, they are gone, just sitting by me. This is like the middle of the day, and they're just reminiscing over the win and slurring their words, and they're just a complete mess. The next morning, they're on my flight. They're right there at the gate, looking like $1 million. Okay, maybe they're looking like a quarter, but they hung on for dear life. They survived, so that was good to see there. And you know what I did most of the time, working in the lobby of the Marriott by the convention center, just writing stories there, and ended up running into Matt Leinart. Talked to Matt Leinart for a while. Incredibly friendly fellow. We
That's
were
close
talking
to
about
you.
that old game against Texas and life today. He was super nice. And then you know who else was at the bar that I talked to for a while was Nick Wright, Bills fans' favorite, Nick Wright, who
I
could
like
not have
that
been more
dude.
of a gentleman. Was
I like
super
Nick Wright.
friendly, super nice. Picked up one of the drinks I had there while I was working. So yeah,
Nick
he's
is
I know Bills fans can't stand him. He is, for what he does, a take artist. He's one of the best, right? Even if you disagree with him vehemently, one of the best.
his two hot takes are that LeBron James is the greatest basketball player ever and that Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback ever. Those aren't bad takes. Like he's right. But bottom line, I do like Nick Wright. And if you look at his history, he was a degenerate gambler that made his way into the, oh, yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So that's
Okay.
kind of why I like him. And he does have some good stuff.
He
Well, you said
does.
something right before. Oh, Matt Leinart. I wish if you would have texted me, he has no clue how close he was going to be to becoming a New Orleans Saint in that draft that we took Reggie Bush. But if we hadn't signed Drew Brees in free agency, I'd have to ask. You'd have to ask Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis, but I think Matt Leinart may have been the pick, and I would have no Super Bowl ring or possibly nothing in my life.
It, how easily we forget. I mean, he was the can't miss
Well, it wasn't can't miss.
USC
It was yeah.
in
So I didn't mean to
college,
cut you
though.
off.
It just seemed maybe. I
We
mean, I'm
didn't
in
see
high
him as
school.
yeah. We didn't see him as can't miss. It was a very I didn't. We personally, he was scary. He didn't look the NFL. Vince Young was this, the prototype, like, who is this? But that was a little risky because, it was still new back then. His Vince Young style was still not accepted yet in the NFL. Um, and then Jay Cutler was the guy that I had scouted in that draft that's who I wanted us to take.
Hmm.
So long story short was, yeah, we
That
got
was a
Breeze
wild
and
draft. I mean, I can
yeah,
remember right up to the day before the night of, it was the Texans are going to take Mario Williams, and it was a
they,
shock. It's like you remember where you were when that news. You probably
they
remember where
signed
you
him.
were, but you had the
We
second
were,
pick.
we were Friday night. We were in New Orleans. They signed him on Friday night. Back then, if you had the first pick, you could negotiate with the player you wanted to pick. They signed him on Friday night. The draft was Saturday. So we knew we were getting Reggie. We partied the whole night, Friday night. It was awesome. Greatest draft. I couldn't even believe what I look at that draft. People have no clue. Well, they do, but Saints fans need to understand that we went from having a facility in San Antonio after Katrina, not knowing what we were doing. We have a brand new head coach, Sean Payton. He was the McVay at that point. I mean, he had that rep as the next offensive guy. And we take an injured Drew Brees and we get Reggie Bush. And to be honest, we thought we could win a Super Bowl with that combo. Like we're like, yeah, these guys are and it worked. We built a defense. We built an
Yeah.
amazing defense and offensive line, like we've talked about. But it starts with quarterback, head coach, as we've talked about to death. But
So basically, Kellen Moore, Derek Carr, same thing, same exact thing going down in Nola
I
now.
watched that press conference, Mickey Loomis and Gail Benson, and I did like that press conference as far as it was first class. They treated Kellen Moore like first class. I like that because I didn't like how they did it last year when Mickey Loomis was chewing gum, saying that he was so happy to keep Dennis Allen, and I'm like, that's not Mickey Loomis, not the one I know. He was scrambling. They got their guy that they want.
They got their guy, but Gail might
I,
want to pronounce his name right. I think she
oh,
introduced
what
him
did she
as
say?
Alan Moore. That was
Gail's
rough.
all right. And I guess when you have that bank account, that's name
Right.
names.
You own the team. Kellen Moore's sitting there thinking, you call me whatever you want. Call me, you hired me, whatever you want to call me.
Anyway, it's whenever I think about anytime somebody goes to New Orleans, I just can picture, like, I always try to, can picture your time there. I always like thinking about it.
Yeah. It was great. I mean, the access is phenomenal, especially Wednesday and Thursday. Every player, every coach available, so I was able to have some long conversations with,
It seems
Connor
like
Embry, the
people,
Chiefs receivers coach, and Dave Merritt, the
yeah,
DBs coach, was great. You know him. Uh, throughout the roster, Christian Parker, the Eagles DBs coach. That was a story on uh, Tuesday morning, I believe, that we had. I mean, 33-year-old. He's really kind of helped those rookies mature. You can actually dig into some football stuff, especially with those coaches. Granted, there's a million people covering this thing. There's cameras and recorders all over the place, but you can have some really good one-on-one conversations during the week, which I can't thank everybody out there for reading everything. It was a lot of fun.
that's what I was going to ask you. If you felt like people are more willing to just talk, not necessarily freely, but just talk football a little bit. Season's over. It's like you can recap it a little
Yeah.
bit. Everybody takes a breath.
Well, this is a good segue because one of those conversations was with Xavier Worthy. And Xavier Worthy, now granted, and we talked a little bit about this too offline, there's probably not a GM or a head coach or even a scout who's going to officially tell a prospect in an official capacity, we will draft you if you're there. And for those listening, not watching, Monas is shaking his head. But let's pull up Xavier Worthy's comments because he had this top 30 visit with the Bills. It went perfectly in his mind. It could not have gone any better. Said he hit it off with Joe Brady, just called him my guy, loved him. And Xavier Worthy left one Bills drive, headed to the airport, thinking that he would be a Bill. Quote, talking to them, and the way it was talked upon, it was, we like you. If you're there, we're going to grab you. And then the fact that they traded away the pick to the team that drafted me was like, oh, we didn't want you. So it struck a little fire under me. So that was a draft pick that we discussed ad nauseum last April. As I wrote then, I like the fact that the Bills are going to do what's best for the Bills in their mind and aren't going to be psyched out by the Chiefs because it's easy to be psyched out by the Chiefs. They've got this aura, they've got the best player in the world. No, you got to do what's best for you at all times. But also, Worthy thought he was going to be a Bill. He had a hell of a Super Bowl, by the way. I get it. A lot of it was garbage time. He might be a star. And also, then you've got Connor Embry, his receivers coach, saying he's shocked that the Bills even traded with Kansas City. He said there's NFC teams that refuse to trade with them just because they're the Chiefs. And here are the Bills fearlessly pulling off that deal. I guess I just want to dive into everything Buffalo. I mean, that's one small piece of the roster of 2024, choosing Keon Coleman essentially over Xavier Worthy, choosing Dalton Kincaid the year before. You heard Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, some pretty strong words on both players. We've got to talk about the defensive line in comparison to the Philadelphia Eagles. This ass kicking unit, Milton Williams, Jalen Carter, Josh Sweat, Jordan Davis. They were, I mean, it starts there with how they were able to get pressure on Mahomes all game long without one single blitz. But if we're going to start with the Bills, what pops to mind first for you? Is it Worthy? Is it the D line? Is it Josh Allen and the offense not able to finish the job? As that's the very first thing that Sean McDermott brought up at his press conference, right? Not the defense suffering another calamity in another big game. It was we had the ball late and we didn't get it done. I found that to be telling. Let's just say telling. But the floor is yours, Jim. Start wherever you want.
No, I'm going to stick to what my area of expertise, and I'll just stick with the front office. I think everything needs to be looked at Brandon Beane at this point for the Buffalo Bills. You, it hit me more as you're watching the Super Bowl, and when I saw Howie Roseman dancing in the locker room, and I know Howie, and we all started. I started with Howie, but I appreciate what Howie's done. He was not a football guy. We've talked about this on this show. He is not. He's an operations salary cap guy that surrounded himself with incredible football evaluators, incredible as far as accomplished, I should say, maybe not incredible, accomplished football evaluators. Tom Donahoe back in the, I think it was mid, 2010-ish, that range. Now he has David Caldwell on the staff. Like those are his trusted former GMs who are scouts, talent evaluators. Brandon Beane was never a scout. Brandon Beane was a salary cap operations type, in Carolina. Obviously, he knows how to organize. Obviously, he and Sean McDermott have this team exactly how the owner should want it. I'm not trying to say they shouldn't have their jobs. They have this team. The goal is for sustained success, and that's what the Bills have. They're in it every year to win the Super Bowl. Now, we can get real deep on that and say the power of Josh Allen has covered up a lot of things. The Worthy thing doesn't bother me. What bothers me is you have to treat the first and second rounds like they're the respect they deserve. That's where you find your worthies, guys that run 4.2s. They don't exist later in the draft. Coleman exists later in the draft. You can get big jump ball wideouts that can't run. That's what the fourth round's for. That's what Coleman is. We said it on the, I wrote about it on Go Long. Coleman's a jump ball wideout. I'm not saying he can't play. He might be a good player. He isn't
Embry
yet.
said the same thing, by the way. He noticed on film that he said it's Anquan Bolden. That's the upside, but he didn't get a lot of separation in college.
Ooh,
If you're
yeah,
not getting
Bolden.
separation in college, are you going to get it in the pros?
That comparison's not close though, because Bolden could run
Right.
routes, was so tough, was so nasty with the ball in his hands. Coleman will never be that guy. But I get his point. Just because he can't run, you still take him. But that's just Coleman. Now the whole league's talking about everybody's talking about get your defensive line like the Philadelphia Eagles now. Well, that's embarrassing. Every team's trying to get a good defensive line. That's like when every defensive coordinator gets a job in the NFL, he's going to bring an attacking physical style, right? No shit. Everybody says the same thing: high tempo offense, physical defense. Got to get a D line, pressure the quarterback. Well, the Bills believe in that too, by proof of overspending for Von Miller, drafting a lean defensive end in the first round, Rousseau, that gives you a good effort. We talked about little Eddie pressures, gives you a little bulldog effort. Not first round. Those guys are out there, 6-foot defensive tackles at 288 pounds. Ed Oliver needs to send a check to Aaron Donald every year, because that's what the Bills did. They just looked at the measurables and said, "Oh, he's Aaron Donald." No, that's not how it works. Only one Aaron Donald in the history of football. I missed on Aaron Donald coming out. I'll admit it. I didn't know he was going to be as good as he was. I get scared of small D tackles. Not my style. Sean Payton always said, you can't make a living on exceptions when you draft. So when you see one, when you get a Jyree Evans, like we did in New Orleans from Division II, trust me, who's the next Division II guard dominate the NFL since Jyree Evans? Haven't been one. So that's what I'm saying. When you strike gold, appreciate it, but don't try. If another team does it, don't try to copy it. And that's all they did. The Bills just went off Ed Oliver's measurables. Hey, he could be Aaron Donald. Not even close, just a guy. Then you extend him. All right, so the point of this, I think the Bills need to understand is who is the trusted talent evaluator in that building? Who is making these calls in the first and second round? Where are the big physical freaks, the dogs that we always talk about? So I just find it, I can go back to when we didn't even have a first round pick in Buffalo. We took Ron Darby in the second round, Carlos Williams in the fourth or fifth round. I don't remember. Both around week 13 of that season were two of the top 3 or 4 probably in the running for rookie of the year. Darby still just was playing a couple of years ago, won a Super Bowl, starting. That's what you do. Second round, Darby was a rare dude. His speed and cover and quickness are off the charts. You can't find that guy later in the draft. You take him in the second round. That's what I'm trying to say. You better start hitting on these first and second round picks. Respect the round. And I just don't think when I look at these picks the Bills are making, Elam can't even get on the field. That's crazy. And nobody talks about it. You overspend for Diggs. Everybody knew Diggs was a 2-year guy. He can't last anywhere more than 2 years. You overspend for Von Miller. And now you're thirsty like a middle school boy, girl going on her first date for Myles Garrett. Well, no shit, you want Myles Garrett. Who doesn't? Green Bay wanted Reggie White. And guess what? You should want him and go get him. You should go get Myles Garrett. It might win you the Super Bowl. But that's lazy GMing. That's a lazy GM, in my opinion. That's an easy one. The hard GMs are finding those first round. Like, well, I take pride when we were in New Orleans drafted. We won the Super Bowl. Guess who we took that year after we won the Super Bowl with the last pick of the first round? Patrick Robinson, Florida State. Starting corner for years. That's the proud. I talk about that very proud because Mickey Loomis, Sean Payton, they leaned on Mickey Loomis as a GM is not a talent evaluator. So he hires all people he trusts to evaluate the talent. Rick Reapers was our director of scouting. He was a former GM under Tom Coughlin in Jacksonville. I mean, we had, you know what I'm saying? They leaned on the scouts. I think the Bills have done a nice job in the mid to later rounds of their drafts. Like they're really, they do a good job. But I know some of their scouts, they have a good scouting staff. There's something missing. Whoever's making those big decisions, and that's always the GM in the first, second round for sure. And that's where I'm saying he needs to find a way. If he's not capable of making these picks himself, like Howie Roseman, lean on your staff. It's time to lean on your staff, maybe. So I guess that's what I've noticed the most, where Buffalo, I feel like, has tried to build this defensive line and secondary. But they're just missing. That's all it is. They're just missing. Everybody misses on picks. I'm not talking about that. But first and second round, that's not your time. That is not your time to miss. That's your time that's where you make your team better. And when you don't hit on those picks, the result is overpay free agency. And I'm pretty sure every GM says the same thing when they get their job. I have to go back to Bean's press conference, but pretty sure every GM says we're going to build through the draft.
Oh, he did. That was a major point of emphasis for him.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that didn't go that way. Is
Right.
Edmonds and the linebacker, is he 21 yet? So my point is,
Tremaine Edmonds is 14 years old in the middle of the Bears defense.
Yep, 14, right? We still don't. Right, Bears defense, it can't stop anybody.
He'll come around.
He'll be good this year. Point being, the power of Josh Allen is amazing. Like nobody understands. I don't think. Like when people want to say something about, I hate the whole MVP talk. Put Jalen Hurts. Take Josh Allen off the Buffalo Bills. Put Jalen Hurts on the Buffalo Bills. I don't think they make the playoffs. How about that? I don't think they make the playoffs with Jalen Hurts. If you just switch quarterbacks.
There's a take.
Look at that Bills roster. So where's the Saquon that teams are going to? So the Kansas City Chiefs had to pick their poison.
James Cook is pretty good. He wants 15 million a year.
Yep. Put Jalen Hurts on the team. See what happens. How good Cook is. I'm just telling you, the Josh Allen's a different beast. He's covering up a lot of things. And I think if the Bills can figure out who is making these crucial first and second round decisions, who's making decisions to waste Terry Gould's money on Diggs and Ed Oliver extensions and Von Miller, whoever's making those decisions, you got to just tighten it up a little bit, because you got gold, you got Josh Allen. Yeah. And you hear it in my voice. I wish I could have picked a player like Josh Allen. Like, yeah, I'm jealous. Every GM is. We all want that quarterback, that rare quarterback, not just a quarterback, a rare quarterback. You got him. And now you're going to surround him with a slow receiver and a little D tackle from Houston? Come on, man. It's time. Epinenza, try-hard guy in the second round. He gives you good effort. You find him anywhere. How'd that third round pick this year, that D tackle? How'd he play?
Dwayne Carter was an inactive player. I mean, they're picking guys up off the street to play that role. That's a third round pick.
Yeah. Like they used to. Remember a couple years
ago,
can't get on the
Linval
field. Joseph. Remember Brandon Beane was walking around with Linval Joseph because he couldn't believe how big his shoulders were. That's a fanboy reaction. That's not a GM reaction. Next thing, you don't talk about officials. I'm shocked that McDermott or Brandon Beane would ever bring up an official on a press conference. You want to think why people talk about Buffalo as a loser city? They don't think that. I know McDermott and Sean did a great job. Buffalo's not a loser city. That's a guy that says that's a loser. But the reason people in this city might feel that way sometimes, and the reason people are walking around crying about the officials, is because the front office is crying about the official. That's the issue.
That's why I loved what James Cook said on that podcast. He's like, F that. Like, who cares? Let's go out and play.
That's a championship.
That's the attitude.
Mentality, no doubt. And he got that pride from Georgia.
And Jordan Phillips, same thing. We talked about it the week before the AFC Championship game. He's like, look, we've got a quarterback too that plays that game. Who's going to flop? It's just part of it. Look at LeBron. The greats are going to work the officials. I don't know. I'm with you there 100%. Why even plant the seed of doubt in your players' minds ahead of a game that it's like you're telling your players you're the victim. Victimhood is never a good thing. Like you expect things to go wrong, and you're gonna lament the calls not going your way. There's gonna be calls that go for you, go against you any given I mean, and
every
the
game.
Chiefs conspiracy theories should have blown up in smoke with that Super Bowl. But anyway, that's I don't want to cut you
That's
off. Keep going,
no,
Jim.
you didn't cut me off. I was good. I really, that's all I said. Everything I wanted to say. It started with Howie Roseman. I really think that's the key. I think, like everybody self evaluates. Hey, I self evaluate every year about how I evaluate players, the guys I missed. That's what I'm saying. We all miss. It's okay to miss, not in the first, second round. You got to tighten that up. And I think that's where maybe Bean takes a step back and maybe he could self evaluate. Look at what Howie Roseman's done. Look who he's hired. I see Terrence Gray on the Bills front office. I know he goes on some interviews for GM positions. Hey, maybe you need to lean on him some more. Maybe that is your top evaluator. So lean on him. That's just
Do you
how
think that he
from the
doesn't? He
outside
doesn't
value.
lead on
I'm
these
not
people?
inside, so I don't know who's making the picks. But first and
Okay.
second round, I do know who's making the picks, the GM and head coach.
Just if you look at those first round picks, look at the last 3 years, and I know both
Yeah,
Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott were adamant that you can't get caught up into we need to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. We need to beat the Kansas City Chiefs.
they're right.
The fact of the and they are, but the fact of the matter is like this is the team that has now beaten you in what 4 of the last 5 postseasons. So that's just reality. Okay, let's look at the drafts. 2022. The Chiefs trade up for Trent McDuffie, maybe the best slot corner in football. Greg Casillo, the son of Juan Casillo, was the scout on the West Coast who pushed hard for McDuffie, for the Chiefs to trade up for McDuffie. Wrote about it last year. You can check it out if you'd like. Who did the Bills get that year? That was the Kyer Elam draft at 23 overall. So they jumped the Bills. They get McDuffie. The Bills get Elam. The Chiefs get maybe the best slot corner of football. The Bills get an inactive first round pick who is thrust into action in the AFC Championship game, and it's embarrassing. It was humiliating. I mean, the Chiefs are going at him a lot. They probably should have thrown at him more than they did. The next year, okay, 2023 draft. I like the Kincaid pick. I still might like it, right? Like, and that's another
You think so?
conversation. Like,
Yeah, we can talk about it.
you know me with the tight ends. Give me those weapons, the seam splitters. He adds a layer of unpredictability to the offense. The Bills trade up, they get Dalton Kincaid. In that same draft, in the second round, much later, the Chiefs end up getting Rashee Rice, who looked like the team's best receiver since Tyreek Hill, the player they've been looking for in every conceivable way. I mean, he 3.5 games into this past season looked like a star in the making. And then he tears his ACL when Mahomes crashes into him on an interception against the Chargers. We forget about that player. All right, so you just see these teams kind of going opposite directions with these premier picks. Last year, obviously, Keon Coleman, Xavier Worthy, as discussed. That's damning at the top of the draft. Now, the Bills have been able to mine for talent in the mid to late rounds, and I think you got to give Brandon Beane that and his
No
scouting staff
question.
that when you're able to find. I mean, Spencer
Benford,
Brown at right tackle is a 93rd overall pick. He's been Khalil Shakir 148, Terrell Bernard 89, James Cook 63. You've
Bernard's
got
good. These are
Osiris
good
Torrance
picks.
59.
He's terrible.
Uh, Ray Davis. We'll see what he is. And then obviously Christian Benford
Good pick.
at 185. So that's kind of salvaged the roster to an extent.
No question.
And I'm with you on most of the above that you kind of outlined. What I can't get past, though, Jim, if we're going to assign blame for why the Bills haven't been able to get over the hump, and look, coaches that have lasted this long with a team, what is it, year 9 for Sean McDermott next season? Only 3 coaches. Let me look this up, make sure I'm not telling you all the wrong thing here. I believe only 3 coaches have won a Super Bowl at that point or beyond with that team,
Mm,
if that makes any sense. I talked
it
about
does.
this with Bob when it came to Matt LaFleur. And
Oh, because that's similar. He has a similar, yeah.
yeah, he's entering year 7. But when we talk about year 9, it's John Madden, it's Hank Stram. I'm sorry, Madden didn't get to 9. I think he got his in 8. I believe it's Tom Landry, Hank Stram, and Bill Cowher. That's it.
After year, after
Yeah,
year
and
nine.
like Sean uses the Andy Reid example often as a coach who was knocking at the door constantly and finally busted down. Well, it took him leaving Philadelphia, both sides moving on and getting to Kansas City and drafting Patrick Mahomes to win that ring. So I don't think the comparison is that clean. And when it comes to a coach with one team getting to the playoffs again and again and again and again, it's very rare historically to last this long and win a Super Bowl. So what does that tell me? Personnel standpoint, Brandon Beane, obviously far from flawless. I mean, those first round picks alone, uh, and I hesitate to just call Dalton Kincaid or Keon Coleman bust by
No,
any means. I'm not saying you
no,
are. I
I'm not either. I'm not
I
saying
want to let
bust,
this
but they're
play
not
out.
contributing. They're not contributing
They're
yet.
not like the players the Chiefs took to catch passes from
A
Patrick
lot of
Mahomes
people
for
taking
sure.
those rounds. I mean,
Yeah.
you need first and second round isn't for, you're not waiting around for first and second rounders. Get them on the field and let's go. I mean, that's why you're taking them. You have Josh Allen. It's not time to develop players. It's time
Here's
to
my
get
thing though, Jim.
go.
The Bills' talent, the Bills' personnel, it was good enough to beat the Chiefs in 4 regular season games. They did it. The
I'm not
players
talking
were good
about the
enough for
Chiefs
that.
anymore, though.
In the
I'm,
playoffs, I'm
yeah,
putting
I'm
it
over
on
the
I'm
Chiefs.
putting it on the defense. I'm putting it on the
Yeah.
head coach.
Well, that's fine
It's
too. That's all I'm fine. You can go. Their safeties. They didn't replace we signed Poyer and Hyde in 17. They didn't replace them. Those guys aren't good safeties. That Bishop's terrible. He's a linebacker. So they need to. That's where I'm at with the bill. Like I'm with you on that too. Like
boy, Cole Bishop, a
however you
second
want
round
to,
pick.
right. However you want to twist it, whether it's the defense, the front office, the first, second round pick, they need to tighten this up. Like you can't waste this quarterback. Can't waste them. Now, here's the other thing I want to point out about windows closing, Tyler, because when I said at this point, you know you can beat the Chiefs. That's actually you. But don't forget who's coming back this year. The Bengals are going to come back, who you know you struggle with. You're going to have to deal with Baltimore again. You're going to deal with Houston again. You're going to deal with the Chargers. Now, that's your conference. These last couple of years when the NFC was down, now it's not down anymore. Now you got the quarterback in Washington. Chicago has a quarterback. Niners will be back. Eagles are obviously the best team in the NFL. The NFC is loaded. Stafford's going
Yeah.
somewhere probably, and that's going to be interesting. So, point is, you got to go through your gauntlet in the AFC just to play a monster in the Super Bowl. Like the Bills got to get this thing right on the defense.
I think what's encouraging, I do think for his faults that the GM in Buffalo understands that everything should revolve around Josh Allen. He
Oh,
is the sun.
100%.
Everything orbits. I don't know if I can say the same thing about Sean McDermott. I think that he does appreciate Josh Allen and has said very complimentary things about him, whether it was in our sit down ahead of the playoffs or after he wins MVP, for sure. But when it comes to managing the game, um, what kind of game it's going to be, how the roster should be constructed, I'm not sure he sees it the same way as the GM. Gut
Fair,
feeling,
because well, what's interesting is I don't hear like we pointed it out, but their stats on third down defense and points per play this year they dropped like significantly. Where you're not a top, you might not be a top defense like you have been. I don't know if that's the young coordinator in Babbage, who all accounts seem like he's pretty good and he's just young, getting better at it. Sean feels confident in him. He wouldn't have done that. That's his baby. That defense is his baby. So I don't think it'll slip. That defense is going to have to get right to max out this
do you
quarterback.
think that Sean jumps in and calls plays again? He didn't seem
I
like
have a
he was
feeling
thrilled with how it was called. He had nice things to say about Bobby Babbage, but he'll learn
yeah,
from it. There's a lot to
yeah.
work on. Could
I'd like to ask somebody on that staff if Sean does call any defenses in playoff games. I
right.
have a feeling there might be some.
That's been the case
I
in the
don't know,
past with Leslie Frazier.
which is fine. Head coaches have in defense,
Right.
whatever. That's your right to do whatever you want. But yeah, they just need to tighten everything up. To me, this is your chance. Can't keep messing on these first, second round. You got to get guys to help this quarterback, either side of the ball.
I do think too, like they should all covet an alpha wide receiver one that does demand the ball 10 plus times a game. That does put fear in the defense.
Yeah.
This everyone eats philosophy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good to it. It did kind of make Josh Allen a more disciplined quarterback. He's reading the whole field. He just won an MVP award as he should. I don't think in a dream scenario the Buffalo Bills want Mac Hollins leading the wide receiver room in snaps, right? I don't think that is the goal. The goal is to find yourself an A.J. Brown, right? Who, okay, guess what? There might be issues that pop up off the field, and this is going to lead me to another point. There might be, okay, there's some bad blood with him and Jalen Hurts. That stuff is real. Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
You might
Right.
read a book on the sideline. Who gives a damn? Who frickin' cares? He's talented. You should want talent, whether it's receiver, whether it's a D tackle with Jalen Carter, who I would be shocked if the Bills would take a Jalen Carter where the Eagles took him. Right? Sometimes you got to take some risk when it comes to character, quote unquote red flags. I talked to the Eagle players about this all week. Like you've got to take some chances. It's a violent game played by violent people. The Eagles play with a different level of violence than anybody else in the sport, and you're gonna need some dudes. And maybe Stephon Diggs did wear out his welcome, and it was best for the Bills to sever ties, eat the money this year, move on. It should not make them gun shy. It should not hinder the Bills from taking a chance on another personality because you need those guys. And I get it. It's a tight locker room. The camaraderie is great. Brandon Bean calls it the ultimate chemistry experiment, kind of fitting all these elements together. But you need one of those elements like hydrogen. What's one of those power? You need somebody that is going to say, "F you, I'm making a play right now. I'm taking the game over. Watch me." You need that guy in a violent sport. So whatever they do this offseason, I don't care if it's at wide receiver, D tackle, edge rusher, say like it's as long as there's blocking and tackling and it's not flag football, you can still kick somebody's ass. And you have to seek those players. And offensively, you have to seek those guys that are hungry for the ball and want to dominate, want to overwhelm you. The vibes are great. You got to have good vibes. We heard about it all year at One Bills Drive. It matters. It took them very far. Winning Super Bowls is still about talent. If you can match it all up, right, in a dream world, you have every box checked. But sometimes when you gamble on talent, you don't know necessarily what you're going to get and all that other stuff. And if it doesn't work out, then you move on. I don't know. Where do you land on all of that? And I get it, every situation is different, right? It's not a catch-all when it comes to taking a chance on a prospect or taking a chance on a veteran via trade, free agency, what have you. You got to take it case by case. But I would rather have the just the bully on the block, the badass, I'm trying to think. It's another word at the tip of my tongue I don't want to say. You'd rather have that than the choir boy, because you can move on from the other guy. But that other guy, he might take you to the Super Bowl and win it.
It's crazy. You can take risks, money financially. That's okay to blow money on Diggs and Ed Oliver and who's the, oh and Von Miller. It's okay to blow money, but not risk to your point, maybe a slightly character risk, however you want. I think I'd like to see the Bills. I don't know enough what goes on in that building, but I hope that they can lean more on their scouting staff. Is I guess where I was at with all this. They've like I said, sustained success. This team is ready to win a Super Bowl every year. They're good. They're doing a good job in the front office. They really are. It's just that they're not making their team better. You make your team better first, second round, and that's all. They just need to tighten that up, and that's how he leans on the staff. And that would be my message to Bean: lean on your staff, because your way isn't working. Whoever's making those first and second round picks is shaky.
Okay, yeah, I finally found it here, what I referenced earlier. So Sean McDermott is entering year 9, and this will all be a go along writing something up right now. The list of head coaches in NFL history to win a Super Bowl title this deep into his tenure with the same team is historically short. Bill Cowher won a Super Bowl in his 14th year with the Steelers. Tom Landry won it all in his 12th year with the Cowboys. Hank Stram won it in his 10th year. Okay. That's it.
That's a good stat.
Year nine
That's a
and
great
beyond.
stat. Yeah, that's a great
That's it.
stat.
So here's the bucket of coaches who have lasted 9 years in one place and never won a Super Bowl. There's a ton, but you've got Don Coryell with San Diego, 9 years. Bart Starr in Green Bay, he lasted 9 years, never won a thing. Marty Schottenheimer, of course, that name gets brought up quite a bit around here. 10. Bud Grant, 18. Jason Garrett, 10. Wayne Fonts, 9. John Robinson with the LA Rams, 9. Dennis Green with the Vikings, 10. Jim Mora with the Saints, 11. Chuck Knox in Seattle went 9. Marvin Lewis lasted 16 years with the Cincinnati Bengals. And of course, right here in Buffalo, Marv Levy lasted 12. So which way does it go? Does it go the route of Cower, Landry, Stram, or one of the others for Sean McDermott?
Great stats.
And there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot to love about this team. You do have an MVP quarterback. You've got James Cook, who sounds like he wants money already. I mean, hell, we're not even a week into the offseason, and he's making that clear on Instagram, so that'll be interesting. The offensive line, here's I like the roster overall. Like I said, they were good enough to beat the Chiefs 4 times. They've been good enough to knock on the door. Like, this is a team that can win the Super Bowl. They are championship caliber. All of
No
that.
question. No question.
Here's what would concern me, though. Like, you look at this past season and how it all lined up. The offensive line was unbelievably healthy. Spencer Brown missed the win against Kansas City. That's it. I mean, look, there's teams that are putting 8, 9, 10, 11 different line combinations together through the course of the season. The turnover differential, insanely good.
Insane.
Plus 28, including the playoffs. Plus 28. Turnover differential. I mean, nobody else was close. This kind of stuff is hard to sustain. It's hard to sustain that.
That's the number one stat. Like, that's a killer to be that good in that stat and not win and get to a Super Bowl. You're right. That hurts.
So yeah, you didn't get the call on 4th and 1
Ugh.
against the Chiefs,
I,
but you did get a Mahomes fumble. You did get the Chiefs' first turnover in 83 drives, an NFL record. You got that break. You won the turnover battle, 1-0. Like, things kind of broke right this past year. And who knows, maybe the Eagles would have just kicked the snot out of the Bills like they did the Chiefs. Who knows? But things were lining up for you to get there and give yourselves a chance. I just kept thinking about that all week in New Orleans, walking around like, what if the Bills were in this game? I mean, they would have overtaken the city. That stadium was full of Eagles fans. I think Bills fans would have found a way to buy those tickets and fill that stadium. The opportunity was there for this team this season, and now you're starting at the bottom of the mountain all over again this offseason.
I think I told you the one day, I said, it's hard because the Bills Chiefs have developed this incredible playoff rivalry, which everybody says it's not a rivalry if you don't, only one team wins. But it's just funny when you see another, like, you're so obsessed with Kansas City as Buffalo, it's like, then you watch them just get dismantled in the Super Bowl. It's like you ask somebody else to fight your fight for you. Hey, can you beat up them for me? I can't do it. This bully's picking on me. Can you beat him up? That's not a good feeling for the Bills to watch, to sit there and you're fighting your heart out. You lose by whatever, blame the officials, all the crying you're doing. And then the team in the Eagles just go out and physically beat them in football. Like, that's my point. It was good for the Buffalo fans to see that. Like, this isn't an officials problem. This is an internal. Bills just got to tighten it up and get that next step. Get tougher, make plays, and beat the bully.
Yeah. I'm thinking back to the Packers in the 90s, and we both watched Brett Favre closely, both watched those Packers teams closely. They couldn't get past Dallas, right? It was every year. The Cowboys are beating them up. The year they won the Super Bowl, they lost to Dallas. They were just ravaged by injuries. I think it was like a Monday night game, which I could only stay up for those 9 o'clock Monday night games if I took a nap earlier in the day. Mom and Dad's rule. So I don't know how long I lasted because it was
Tyler,
ugly.
as Packers fans, I'm laughing because that was the only time we would see them, was like a night game. They never were on, like,
Oh, we had the ticket. We had the satellite dish ticket.
Okay. We didn't have.
Yeah. G5, 14, all those crazy channels. So they lost, though. I mean, they got beat up again. They were just down to like Desmond Howard and Don Beebe at wide receiver at that point. Brooks had the knee. Antonio Freeman had a broken arm. They were, but that everybody knew that Packers team was ready to get past the Cowboys as they're beating the Niners in the divisional round in like this muddy game at Lambeau. The fans start the "We Want Dallas" chant, all of that. What happened? They played Carolina in the NFC Championship game and they blew them out. But that's where Bean is correct, I think. Like you cannot become obsessed with the Chiefs to the
No, I agree
max
with that. I
because
agree with that.
he said, "What happens if we play the Bengals and we lose to the Bengals?" I thought it was interesting that he brought up the Bengals, by the way, a team that didn't even make the playoffs, but everybody knows that they're right there, right?
They're,
They didn't join the 44% club, but they're right there.
they're right
So he
there.
said, "What happens if we lose to the Bengals? I got to sit here and tell you, well, we built a team that was equipped to beat the Chiefs. What do you want me to?" So he's right. You do have to
He's
do
right.
what's best for you.
Yeah.
And I think there are so many lessons to be gleaned from the champs, from the Eagles. How do you get to that place? It's complicated, but you can start with the fact that you've got Josh Allen. Nobody else does. Think through that lens.
Yeah, you're
I think there is a path this offseason for the Bills to be better than they were last year, but it's not going to
100%.
be easy, right? They don't have money to burn. They just burned it on a Von Miller. You're getting out of the Von Miller business this offseason. You have invested in the D line. It hasn't worked. So what would you do to drive it forward? I mean, he called it lazy G. I mean, hell, I'd give up two firsts for Max Crosby for Myles Garrett. I'd do that in a heartbeat if that was a
Yeah, you have to.
possibility.
You have to at this
I don't
point.
know if I'd go
You've
three.
already,
I'd go two.
but you have to make a run. I mean, Garrett and Crosby they are difference makers on that side of the ball. So yeah, you got to make a run for those guys. But this is the spot you're in because you've already made your quote unquote, safe selections in the first round on the D line and second round on the D line. So you've tried it the traditional way. So you can't waste the quarterback. I'm with you. Like I said, it's lazy, but it's like I always said, it's not sometimes in personnel, everybody can like just make the right decision from a fifth grader to the GM. Everybody knows Myles Garrett would help the Buffalo Bills. Yes, go get him.
One other question that was brought up is how do you find your own Chris Jones, your own D lineman that can change a game at any moment? And yeah, like being said, they don't. The teams aren't just giving up Chris Joneses, but Chris
No,
Jones was a second round pick,
for a reason.
right? That's what I'm saying. And I looked it up. Bob McGinn, he talked to the scouts about Chris Jones, and there wasn't a lot of pretty things said about Chris Jones out of what was it, Mississippi State? Like the red
Mm-hmm.
flags were real. Quote, he's got talent, but he's a mess as a kid. He really flashes, but has character concerns. So there were red flags. There were concerns. Like one of these players can trickle down to you at the end of the first round, early second round, but you've got to be willing to take that risk for the upside, right? John Dorsey was the Chiefs GM. He's never been afraid of taking those risks. He took Chris Jones, and now Chris Jones is going to be in the Hall of Fame. Could it have blown up in their face? Could it have backfired? Absolutely. But when you're a contender, when you're a team with a strong locker room like the Bills have, I think you are in a position to take that risk. So yeah, Chris Jones, he doesn't grow on trees, but you can still get that player with a calculated risk at the bottom of the first round. I don't know who that is in this draft. I'm saying
No, I
overall
don't
big
either.
picture.
Yeah, and I don't know the draft either. To your point, though, Chris Jones, you take a shot on a guy, a rare talent in the second round. I don't trying to remember. I'd have to go back and talk to some of our guys. I do remember. I don't think we were going to mess with him, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, I have to go back and look. I don't remember correctly. I don't feel like he had anything bad on him. It may have just been more of a. I'd have to go back and ask. I don't like not knowing it, but it may have been a work ethic issue, love football issue, down
Mm.
in, down out type thing.
Yeah.
And because which is really true about him. He's always kind of we talk about him being a closer sometimes. I mean, you can count on him in the fourth quarter in big games. You're going to see Chris Jones dismantle people um, when it
That's
counts,
right.
and
That
that's
would have
what
been
you
your
want.
2016 draft.
Okay,
This
so
is
that was the
Shaq Lawson
16.
draft.
That was a bad draft because we took Shaq, who was that was just an okay play. He was a good player, whatever. That wasn't a difference maker, but we didn't have. That was a bad draft in general. I can
Hmm.
remember we didn't the guys we were talking about, like we didn't miss. Shaq was our best option. Like he was our best pick of the guys we were looking at. I could tell you that. Now, who like should we have taken Chris Jones? Looking back, hell yeah.
So Shaq, you took him with Rex and the gang at 19th overall, and
Yeah.
all the players kind of in that bucket. You've got Darren Lee,
So we
uh,
we didn't. Rex hated Darren Lee. He was right.
right?
Yep.
Robert Kimdichie, forgot about him.
We weren't messing with him. Keep going. Go more some
Well,
D
he was at
linemen.
29. I'm just looking at the D
Who? Yeah, look at the
linemen.
D line. Yeah, that's all. Because we
But
didn't. We
here's
weren't
an
going to mess with
interesting
him.
pick. That was the Jalen Smith draft off of his injury at Notre Dame. He
Yeah,
fell all
we
the
weren't
way
messing.
to
We weren't messing with
34.
him. Yep.
Linebacker Miles Jack at 36, and Chris Jones went 37. Oh yeah,
Yeah. So
also
Jones.
Kenny Clark was 27.
Yeah, we weren't. We wanted DN. So we wanted like Shaq was. He was. I mean, he was what we thought he would be. His Shaq's deal was he came in and needed surgery. I think right away, and set him back a little bit maybe. And Shaq
Right.
was never the most working. Like he's never the greatest guy in shape wise, but he was a dog. Like Shaq was a tough,
I,
big,
I remember
fast
writing
physical.
stories on that. You're bringing me back after the draft. Was it like a shoulder that came out?
Yeah,
We're like, oh, did the
and we
Bills
knew
draft
about it.
damaged
No,
goods
we knew
here?
about it. So no, we knew it was either we either knew it was going to be a surgery where it would happen after the
Yeah.
season or before the season. It was one of those where I don't think they really knew when they wanted to do the surgery. Could we draft them, get them through the season, then do the surgery, and it ended up draft. Well, like I always tell you, medical people don't know their stuff, just like GMs don't either. Sometimes, like you don't. It's not an exact science.
Hey, medical. Speaking of that, any thoughts on Eric Ciano, strength and conditioning coach,
I
getting axed this week?
so as a Southeast scout, when I started with the Saints, Eric Ciano was at Georgia Tech. He previously was at Tennessee as the strength coach. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I could ramble off some incredible athletes that he trained and coached at those schools. For him to be in Buffalo, you won't meet anybody that doesn't like Eric Ciano as far as professional, hard worker, knows his stuff. Obviously, Sean respected and liked him for however many years he was. Ciano's been here since 13. Sean kept him, obviously. Sometimes as a head coach, you feel like you need to make a, you know, I need a change up. I'm trying right now to change things. Fair or not to Ciano, that's the business. So tough calls. Sean makes tough calls. Sean has done that with. Sean makes tough calls. I respect that about Sean. Like that's not an easy thing. I know how much he respects Ciano. He wouldn't have kept him this long if he didn't. So that's a tough call for Sean. So I mean, hey, maybe that's a complaint from the locker room. You know, they have those player surveys. There could be a player survey that we don't know about. Hey, we'd like to see something different in our strength training. I don't. Tough call. Good man. He'll get a job if he wants one.
Always easy to connect dots too. You can't help but wonder. You heard the GM and the head coach both reference Dalton Kincaid and needing him to increase his play strength. They want him bulking up at tight end. Could that be a reason for the change?
Oh, that would be tough. I
You
can't go
wouldn't do
with that.
something for one player, but they do want him to get
No.
stronger.
Yeah, well, that should have been. You should have. That should have been known a couple of years ago, and it should have happened. Like I'm
That's what I
with
don't
you on that.
understand. Like you drafted him to be a weapon down the field,
I'm
right?
with
Like,
you. Where
and
is
but
he?
now you want to bulk him up. Is that gonna zap the talent down? I don't know.
I don't know either. Uh, I think we both know what we're saying there. It's to me, it's just time to produce. If you're Kincaid, like
Yeah,
that one, he looked like he was on a track to be a good player, and he still can be.
maybe the
But
PCL held him back too. I don't know much about PCLs, but he was playing through pain,
got to be
according to Dalton
careful with
Knox,
injuries
Dawson
and
Knox.
officials. Injuries and officials
Yeah,
could keep you. You know what I mean? You can falsely evaluate your team if you're always going to blame injuries and officials
that's true.
and strength coaches. You better start hitting on picks.
Whew. All right. Anything else, Bills wise? What about Matthew Smiley? So at
Yeah,
his presser after the season, Sean said he was going to
that's
keep him
all.
on staff, no
Didn't have a
changes,
problem.
and then what? A week later, last Matthew Smiley fired. What
That's
would
the
happen in
business.
between?
Nothing. That's
Unless
the
he's just lying through
business.
his teeth and he knew all along, but I would hope that would be
No,
the
he
case.
took time. Sean, I give Sean credit. Think about it. It took him this long to even fire Ciano. So I think what you do, I think he probably goes through you go through your roster right away, who we keep in reserve future, blah, blah, blah. Get the coaching staff. Then you get that in order. Hey, who are we going to move on from? Do a full evaluation. Sean probably did he didn't, you know what I mean? It was thorough. He didn't want to
Yeah.
rush it. I respect that. I mean, there's proper ways to fire people. I always say that, and I feel like the Bills do a good job of that. Like when they fired us, I mean, I still had a year under my contract. That's fair.
Hmm.
It's fair to do.
Are you paying James Cook 15 million a year?
No,
How
not when I have Josh Allen.
do you pay,
I do
what do
my
you pay
best to
him?
keep them. I do my best to keep them. I don't know enough about their situation and the market. I'm out of that. Like I said, Tyler, like I sit there and talk about like I have weak like strength. Every GM has strengths and weaknesses. Like if I was a GM, my weakness would be where Bean's strengths are. Like I don't know the cap like Bean does. I don't know, I don't know the money part like that. So I would have to lean heavily on, that would be my right hand first hire would be whoever I trusted as the money guy, to help explain me how we could maneuver some things. So yeah, everybody has strengths and weaknesses.
Here's what else we don't know: the whole cash versus cap debate.
Right.
I mean, look at the Eagles and Howie Roseman and how they get that done. That is a strength of Howie.
No
And
question.
but it starts with ownership. It starts with Jeffrey Lurie saying, I want to win Super Bowls. I want to win championships. I'm okay moving money into bonuses and moving money into the future, whatever it takes. So when you've got that green light, then okay, Jalen Hurts is up for a deal, get it done. AJ Brown wants money, get it done. Devontae Smith, get it done. Lane Johnson, like as soon as their players become eligible for extensions, like they don't mess around. They get it done because they know the market's only going to go one direction, and they know this player's really good, and they believe they can win with this player, and they can manipulate the money as such. So I don't know the situation for the Bills, and then it becomes okay. Who is worth those extensions and who isn't worth those extensions? But when it comes to James Cook wanting 15 mil a year, I just pulled up the running backs. Here's the state of the market right now. Christian McCaffrey, he's the outlier, right? 19 per spot track. And then it gets to Jonathan Taylor's at 14, Saquon Barkley 12.58, Alvin Kamara 12.25, Josh Jacobs at 12, James Conner 9.5, Dave Montgomery 9.1, Ramondre Stevenson 9, Joe Mixon 8.5, then Chuba Hubbard 8.3.
How'd that Super Bowl go for Saquon, making 12 mil a year? How'd he do in the Super Bowl? Didn't he know he played? So I'm with you, man. I like as far as I'm not saying Cook's not a good player. Try to keep him. He's a good player. Keep him if you can. You got to do your price though. When you have Josh Allen, you have leverage. You don't have to overpay anybody.
He should get more money. If I'm Josh
100% agree.
Allen,
100% agree with you.
that's where you start. Pay Josh Allen what he's worth. Because let's
He
pull that
is.
up right now. Josh Allen is the
Don't even do it.
14th highest paid quarterback in the NFL,
So there you
the
go.
MVP of the
So
league.
so you want to do your middle school fawning over Miles Garrett? Go ahead, but just know that that quarterback's going to need a little bit more too at some point.
Here are the players who make more money than Josh Allen on an annual basis. Patrick Mahomes, just ahead of him. Kirk Cousins,
Oh,
Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray. Jalen Hurts is ninth. And remember when he signed that deal for 51 a year, there was some criticism like, what? 51 a year for Jalen Hurts? But that's how he was doing. He knew the market was going to explode after he signed that. And now he's ninth. Lamar Jackson, eighth at 52. Justin Herbert, seventh at 52 and a half. Jared Goff, sixth at 53. Tua Tagovailoa, fifth at 53.1. At number two, it's a three-way tie. Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, all making 55 a year. And then Dak Prescott is the richest player in the game at 60 million per year.
I love Jerry. The
That's all Dallas had to do was what Philly did. Like, you're the
and
richest
they could
sports franchise in the world. Just
and
move
they could
money
have done it.
around.
Yeah, they could have done that 2 years ago when they
You're
could have
right.
got him at a reasonable. To
That's
your
what I'm
point,
saying.
yeah, yeah, you're right. Josh Allen, when he was on that little, I saw he was flying some jet with his girl or whatever vacation. He could have texted Bean and said, "Yeah, go get Garrett, and then make sure I'm the highest paid player quarterback in at least the division. How about that? Let's start with our division. Like, can you get me over Tua before we break the bank for the defensive ends?
It's absolutely going to happen. I mean, it would be
No
ludicrous if
doubt.
it didn't happen.
No,
And
definitely
I
not.
know Josh Allen isn't the type of personality to demand this and demand that, and he just doesn't. He doesn't even yell at his teammates on the field. But
Just
what's
like
right is right. I feel like the Bills know that, and yeah, he's at 43 per year.
Eddie Pressures owes Aaron Donald paychecks. Uh, Brian Dable owes Josh Allen a paycheck for his head coaching job. Joe Shane could give Josh a nice little sprinkle for his GM job. Like Josh Allen's getting people jobs because those two have destroyed the without Josh Allen. Like almost run that organization into the ground without Josh Allen behind Shade and Brian Dable. So I mean they're the worst team in their division.
Whoa, worst team of the division.
The Giants.
Oh, I thought you said the
No,
Bills
the
without
Giant.
Josh
No, I'm
Allen.
talking Joe Shane and Dable
Oh,
without Josh Allen
sorry.
have taken the Giants to the bottom of that division.
Well,
Like
let's take it easy on those Giants. All right. This is the one giant leap. 20 the series that I had to go along, we just had to run it this year. It's going to be this year because they're going to trade for Matthew Stafford. All
which
right.
would help, which actually would put them in. You're right, that would help them.
Well, they hired Chad Hall, right? Who's literally family. I think brother-in-law of Matthew Stafford.
Oh,
So,
that's right. I forgot
yeah.
about that. Good. That's see, you're putting it together. I like how you put
I don't know that they would
conspiracy.
never trade the third overall pick for him, but so maybe hey, you keep the three, you get a player there, you get
But you see
Stafford,
my
you're in
point. Like
business.
you do, it's funny when you try to copycat or don't give credit to where the credit to the generational talents like Aaron Donald, Cam Newton, when he got all those people. Like Cam Newton's getting all this criticism because he said that Carolina's locker room had a loser culture before him. He he meant what he meant was he just says things maybe not the easiest to handle. He was correct in what he said. They weren't a relevant team without him. They just weren't. You can have Luke Kuechly and Steve Smith all you want. Nobody cares about him. You're winning 2 games. You bring the big dog in, and
Yeah.
you see what happens. All of a sudden, Ron Rivera gets jobs. Sean McDermott gets jobs. Kuechly's going to the Hall of Fame. That's Cam Newton. He
The
knows it
quarterback changes everything.
changes everything. Drew Brees did it for us in New Orleans. We all know it. We all know it. Sean Payton was the first thing he did in Denver. Got his quarterback. You saw the difference immediately. Not hard to figure out.
It's going to be a long 6, 7 months. It's going to be a long 12 months because we say it
It
often. It's about the
well,
playoffs for the
there it
Bills.
is. You just said it. It does. The regular season for Bills fans is going to be. I mean, you can go ahead and dance all you want to that bum song that they play and all that crap they do at the state. Get to the playoffs. Get to the Super Bowl. It's enough with all this garbage of the regular season celebrations.
Is the
Stop beating
Mr.
the Chiefs.
Brightside stuff kind of forced? It's like
I'm
they're
not
trying
really
to do
at
their
this
own
point. I don't
renegade.
even think anybody likes the song. I don't know anybody even likes it.
It
So
was cool for a little while. I don't know. It
I
seems
agree.
a
You
little
can wear it wore
forced.
out. Probably it seems forced at this point.
And I like the Killers. I like the song.
How about this? Don't bring the song back until you for only playoff wins. How about that?
I like it. Right. Save it. You
Save it.
can't be busting out Mr. Brightside when you're,
Yeah, beating
pounding
up on yeah,
on the
beating up
Jets,
Aaron.
right? You're,
Yeah,
you're
that's what I was gonna
dancing
say.
on
Aaron
Aaron
Rodgers.
Rodgers'
That's what I was
grave.
gonna say.
What
How
about what
happy?
about the
Wait,
thank you tweet, by the way, the Jets put out for Aaron Rodgers? Did you see that?
they. I'm telling. That is one of the. That's going to go down as one of the strangest. Everything about that whole thing.
What do you expect, man? Like he just
You
did this in
hand a
Green
team to
Bay. He's gonna be the pseudo GM. He's gonna run your franchise into the ground.
I know one thing I wanted to say. A hire that I did like was the Raiders hiring their GM John Spytek. If you get a chance, watch his opening press conference. He's a scout, so I always have a soft spot for scouts. He's a scout at heart, and getting his opportunity. But I thought he did a great job in his press conference, just thanking who he needed to thank, talking about the industry, the scouting part of it. I'm interested to see if they can get things turned around in Vegas. I don't know about Carroll at this point, our boy
I
Pete,
can't
but
see it. I can't see the Raiders being good anytime
the only
soon
thing I'm going
at
to
all.
say,
Like,
I'm with you, but I'm trying to think of a way. Like I'm jealous a little bit of Spy Tech too. That would be to be the GM in Vegas would be a little bit that would be overwhelming for me. But I hope he can make it work because that's a dream job right there.
What are they going to
But I
do at
like how he handled
quarterback?
it. Yeah, that's right there. That's the issue. Just you got to go get one. Don't take Shador.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about Shador Sanders.
I do. Good player. He's gonna be.
Good.
I think he's good. Yeah, I just don't think he's special. But I think he's good.
Could Cam Ward be special?
Yes, he can be special.
Ooh.
Yes, there's a
Did the
clear
Titans take him
difference.
number one?
If you're talking special, it's either him or that DN from Penn State. Those are special players, I think. Cam. When I say Cam Ward special, he's got that special. He needs some. He needs some seasoning, like they all do. But
Hmm.
the talent, that University of Miami, that's a bum coach, Cristobal. Like he can't win. Cam Ward went there and made them relevant quick.
I
So
like that
they
point.
should have been in the college playoffs. That's crazy that you're going to
Hey,
keep out the
you
most
don't just
exciting
you don't
quarterback.
just waltz into the Carrier Dome and think
Hey,
you're going to win. My
well,
Syracuse
look at
Orange took
Syracuse.
care of Cam Ward.
But Syracuse is a good example. They got a quarterback this year, and a better, and they were relevant.
Could he be a first round pick?
I didn't study him enough.
McCord.
You probably saw him more than I had. You tell
I
me.
mean, he was amazing, unbelievably accurate, but I don't know. It's just kind of like standing in the pocket, pop a shot, picking you apart. Is that going to work in the pros? I'm not quite sure. So we've got a lot of time to think about the draft, talk
Yeah,
about the
I know.
draft.
I know. I
Like I
got
wrote, like
exhausted just
we
thinking
got to
about
hit pause on the mocks, hit pause on salary capology.
No, let's
Like
stick to
let's
the
let the Eagles Super Bowl win, breathe, and discuss it and think about it and figure out how a team like the Bills can get to that point because they are on that short list. I know we were critical here, but the Bills are on that short list of teams that can get to win the Super
yeah.
Bowl right now with the Super Bowl window with Josh Allen.
Yeah, they don't need it. Yeah, they just need to tighten it up. Tighten it up.
Jim, this was a pleasure. Let's make sure we connect for some 911 Tavern wings, perhaps, maybe some Maine and Hamlin, perhaps. We are
Tyler,
overdue.
I want to invite you to the Memphis Showboats. You can be an official member of the Yacht Club. That's what the fan base for the Memphis Showboats call themselves, the Yacht Club.
Ooh,
So I'm
okay.
officially inviting you to be on the Yacht Club at some point.
I'm in. Let's do it. How's the roster coming together, by the way?
Good. I like the quarterback. Quarterbacks should be a good battle. I think I got up front figured out. So, but guess what? At this point, every GM in the league is we're undefeated and everybody loves everybody until you go 0-1, and then everybody stinks. We all know how it works. So it's a roller coaster ride with front office coaches and players. But
Let me pull up this roster so I can rip your ass here. Let's see what Jim put
well,
together.
here I'll get you like here's a player that's intriguing. I signed a receiver, Kai Loxley, out of Maryland, played at UTEP. His father's the head coach at University of Maryland. He kind of bounced around as a receiver quarterback at UTEP and the CFL. Now he just wants to play receiver. He's 6'4", and basically, to be honest with you, he's like Coleman. He might be a little faster, but he's big, fast. He's big, straight line, can jump, make plays in the air, jump ball type receiver. But in the UFL, you can get creative with the rules, and they have those double passes. So Loxley's a guy that played some quarterback. So I got him just to maybe, hopefully, he can succeed, dominate as a receiver, and then hopefully maybe trick plays too. But that's the type of roster building in the UFL that you do.
Now, did you acquire one Cam Dantzler based off a
Yeah.
go long feature? Is that what led to that signing?
So when I know a lot about him because of that.
There we go.
He's
All right.
he's what the UFL is all about. He's angry, wants back in the league. Blah, blah, blah.
I like
guys
it.
that.
Okay. Some recognizable names I'm seeing here. Isaiah Washington, Melifanu.
He's a
Okay.
vet. He's a special team guy. Yep. No suit. You won't know much. No, not name. No name names. I
But
like
you
the
know
two
what?
running backs.
That's probably the way to go though. Like build an actual team, try to build the best product. No gimmicks needed. No Tebows and Kaepernicks like Antonio Browns. I remember we talked about Antonio Brown a couple years ago, like
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
XFL. Like just that's not gonna make this league successful. It's
No.
going to be just
Good.
good football, entertaining football, a good product.
I think you nailed it.
Yeah. Well,
Our
can't
head
wait.
coach is Ken Wisenhunt. So he brings that Pittsburgh. Oh yeah, no, it's been fun dealing with him.
That's
He's a good
great.
shit. He
I
doesn't
talked about
BS.
Wizenhunt with Matt Leinart a little bit.
Oh, that's right. Because yeah.
because I think he bench liner for Kurt Warner. But oh, I just lost you. There you are. Okay, I think we just lost Jim. So let's just call it right there. Thank you so much for listening, for reading everything at golongtd.com for paid subscribers. Share the word. We're just getting started. There's no off season. We've got a lot planned. Thanks so much, everyone.